Okay, so news at Kate today coming not from my salubrious home studio, but from a bench in a park just outside Angel, and that's because I've spent this morning at the Immigration Tribunal Centre here on Rosebery Avenue. So some of this story you might already know, but a few years ago I used to teach English for a group of female asylum seekers as a kind of voluntary thing, and while I was doing that, one day a new student walked into my class. She was a woman from Cameroon, and my gut instinct was that she was a lesbian. I don't claim to have, some amazing magical gaydar, but I know a lot of people in the LGBT community. I'm sort of very much involved in that community, and also as a performer and as a comedian, it's very often my job to kind of be the judge of audiences and audience members and get a sense of who people are, and that was my instinct. Because of that, I made it very, very clear in the classes that I was LGBT positive and that I was enthusiastic about fighting homophobia. And there are often students in these classes who've come from parts of the world where negative attitudes towards gay and lesbian people are the norm. And I felt it was really important to make it clear that they wouldn't be tolerated, those attitudes wouldn't be tolerated in my class. And when I created that atmosphere, sure enough, a couple of weeks later, she came out to me quietly and then asked me not to tell the rest of the group because she was afraid that there might be negative attitudes towards her. I stopped teaching, but I carried on being friends with her, and I then heard that her asylum case had been turned down, and I was furious. I was like, how can the Home Office be even thinking about deporting a lesbian to Cameroon, where the punishment for being a lesbian is, and I quote, up to death? Yeah, like we're literally going to deport someone who could be killed for going back there. And she said, I didn't tell them about my sexuality. I didn't mention it to my lawyers, and I didn't mention it in my case because I thought that I would be discriminated against for it. And that's quite understandable if you grow up in a country where your sexuality is illegal. And as a young woman, she had a girlfriend who was then murdered for her sexuality. I totally get why you wouldn't want to come out. And anyway, a lot of British LGBT people don't come out until they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Where's the law on what age you have to come out? So I said to her, this is super, super important. We have to put this in your case because we cannot allow you to be deported back to Cameroon where you could be killed. And I wrote to the charity and I wrote to her lawyer and we wrote to the Home Office and explained this and put a new set of papers in, and the Home Office wrote back and said they didn't think she was a lesbian because she would have mentioned it earlier. Yeah, like, is there any reason why she didn't mention it earlier? Oh, there is the death penalty thing, isn't there? Like, what other reason do you need? So they rejected it. That day I took her for lunch in Soho, and we were walking down the back of a pub through Soho, and some guys at the back of the pub started shouting homophobic abuse at us. So that's amazing, isn't it? The Home Office are unwilling to accept that she's a lesbian, but a bunch of dickheads around the back of a pub in Soho think it's blindingly obvious. So we were in court today, or in the Tribunal Centre, trying to get the next stage of the hearing through. And one thing that was great was loads and loads of supporters turned up. There was a really big turnout from her friends from the asylum process, her friends from the LGBT community in London, and all sorts of organisations that she's involved with. And what happened in the end was that the case got adjourned for another 4 months because the Home Office had failed to send over a piece of documentation relating to the last time they rejected her case. So we're postponed for 4 months till the start of August. And I guess what I want to say is two things. Firstly, it is obnoxious that anyone should ask me to go into a court of law and testify what someone else's sexuality is. Like, can you imagine? Like what if somebody's like, I'd like to testify that this is what I think Kate's into sexually? I mean, I actually think that people shouldn't do that. I mean, I have to, but to save her life. But no one should have to. The only person who should testify about their sexuality is the person themselves. You know what you're into, but you might have slept with people and still not know their sexuality. Maybe they were experimenting. Maybe they had such a bad time with you that it's put them right off whatever they were into before. Goodness only knows. And secondly, though, it's about time. Like, I was affronted by being made to sit around and wait this morning, but this woman has been in the UK for 15 years with her claim going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. 15 years. And I guess I just feel like throughout that time, she hasn't been able to get a job, she hasn't been able to get any training, she hasn't been able to move on with her life, move on with her career. And I guess we talk so much about LGBT rights, which is great, and we talk about refugee rights, and I just feel like there is this basic human right to like not have your life wasted dicking about in that way. Like, life is short, and we have a right to get our issues dealt with so that we can move on and get on with our life. And right now, yeah, that's what I'm super angry about. The human right to get on with our life and get things done, not have to keep doing retakes because of all the cars. Thanks to all the sponsors as usual.